This is another episode of Competitive Edge. I'm back with Mauisnake here. Obviously, the first episode, we just did the playoffs of Katowice. Last week, we did the PGL RMR Group A for the EU RMR, and now we're going to do Group B, which obviously, at the time you see this video, if you want to make bets, I would suggest you rush to make them, because by the time this comes out, there won't be many hours before the first round matchups. Luckily, we don't have them yet, because we don't know who plays since it's a Swiss system, but you will be able to the whole week on the site. They'll have all the rounds of bets, and you'll be able to go there and see the odds and all the rest of it. And I would say maybe if you don't get a chance to bet on these games, take some of ours as a form guide as to how good some of the teams are, or maybe who they'll be favoured against. So you might have seen on Snake About It, we did some bets already, but first things first, since this is brought to you by Esports Bet exclusively, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix, they actually have not just their classic deposit bonuses, which are usually for people who are doing the first time deposit, have never put crypto on the site. They actually have some promotions now, which are deposit bonuses, but they're for anyone. All the people on the site can use it, even if you've already deposited. But crucially, you can only do it once. Obviously, it's like a special one-off promotion. So I'm going to show you one of those quickly now, which is when I go onto the Esports Bet website, instead of going to esports in the top left here and picking from the bets like you can see on screen, you go to the promotions tab, has a handy little picture of a present there. Click on that, and what you will see is this particular one I want to tell you about now, the Red Envelope Frenzy. It's to celebrate the Lunar New Year over in Asia. As you can see, it still runs for 38 days more. So at the time of seeing this video, you've still got plenty of time to think about it, ask the customer support, find out the details. Go here, click on it. As you can see on the side, wait there 1 second, I'll just move it over. 1 second. As you can see, you basically just apply it on the side here. You can contact the customer support and ask them about any terms and conditions. The promotion's simple. If you put in 100 USDT, you get an extra 100 USDT, so it's 100% match bonus. You get 100,000 ESC, which is their token that you can make bets and predictions with. You can also, if you check out the site, convert that into USDT and other cryptocurrencies. So you get 100,000 of that to play with. And then this last one is mainly for League of Legends players. But if you're a CS fan and you want just some free equity, they also give you essentially a risk-free bet on a tier 1 League of Legends match. That has to be LCS, LEC, PCS Spring, which is like the Taiwanese league, LPL China, and LCK from Korea. Basically, just go, because it's a risk-free one on that one, I would just pick like an underdog, put the bet in there. It's just like free equity, like I say. If you win, you get the multiplier. If you lose, you get the initial equity back. That's obviously a league-only one, so you've got to do that one first, because that's treated as the first bet since it's risk-free. Now then, since we are CS people, we obviously care about the matches, don't we? So I'll go and show you the matches, and we'll run through RMR Group B. So first things first, Maui, I actually want to know, just before we get into the details and all the gory aspects, so I'll just go back to the other camera a sec. One thing I want to ask you at the outset is this. You might know this, anyone who's seen my Twitter, but I'm essentially perma-triggered at all RMRs and qualifiers, because I've made my feelings pretty clear. I just hope that all the sort of big planes in the sky safely land and all the celebrities get off them to come to my Davos-like major. I don't actually want little up-and-coming underdogs like the bird strike to fly into the plane and crash that plane that has all those beautiful Falcons player on it. Meanwhile, they won't do anything at the major. What's your vibe, Maui? Like, are you feeling like some of the underdog ones? Are you thrilled at some of the newer people? Have you had the heartstrings tugged on like cold Thorin, who can't be enthused at seeing Portuguese people live out their dream? Where are you at on the Group A one? How have you felt about it?
Oh, sure. For Group A, I would say that of the underdog teams that made it, I would say my favorite easily is Eternal Fire. But that's just because I've been watching them a lot.
You were already feeling before that, yeah.
Yeah, I've been pretty high on this team pretty much right before Katowice even started, and my bold prediction about them is I think they're going to make it to top 8 at least one S tier event this year. I think that's kind of where I would.
Well, they got a lot of firepower, yeah.
Have they got the firepower? I just think actually in terms of their cohesion is so much better than it used to be. So I'm cool with them in general. With some of the underdog teams that didn't make it, not underdog, some of the favorites that didn't make it, the obvious one has to be Falcons. Of course. That's the big elephant in the room in terms of just that team not putting it together despite the fact that they made semifinals at Katowice. I don't really have too much sympathy for them at this point, because just in terms of the teams they played, I didn't really see. It
was a very winnable field. It's not like they just drew killers. They basically just drew fears. That's it. And you're allowed to lose one. But the problem is to lose the best of 3 to Amcals. Like, I can complain about other things about the format. I can't complain about that one. You're supposed to win that, obviously, you know.
See, I think it was Amcall in our last competitive edge where I said these guys are 100% beating Enterprise, and I thought there was a good chance that they actually made it as one of the 3-2 teams. They did, but I didn't think they would beat Falcons.
Sure.
That's where I was like, oh god, like that's probably it for them, and everybody's gonna forget about their story entirely. But then they actually made it. So Amcall was a team that, you know, I'm kind of I'd say I'm lightly pleasantly surprised. I would have pinned them at like 40% to make it through this RMR.
Right.
So, but then some of the other teams that finished 2-3, I mean, I don't really care about this Fnatic lineup, so I'm not really too sympathetic of them either. The other teams that didn't make it, whatever to me, I guess like the teams that people are sort of saying came out of nowhere have to be Koi, Saw, and Amcall. Those are the three where it's like, where do these guys come from? Because it's kind of a weird assortment of guys that were all at one point either on Saw or on Movistar Riders.
Okay.
I don't really know if I feel like these are the best iterations of those teams. Like I thought the Movistar team that made it to the semifinals of Cologne last year was obviously better, or in 2022 that was. I think they were obviously better than some of these lineups.
Yes.
So I'm not really sure. It just feels a little bit lucky and random. I guess in your overall point, the overall meta discussion here, do I mind seeing some underdogs make it through from time to time? No, but I just wish I kind of just wish one of those teams would be there. Falcons would be there instead, personally.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Right, okay. So what we'll do is we'll get into Group B, but I'll just show people quickly, because obviously with some of the bets on the screen, these are the ones we're going to make. These are the 4 we're going to bet on. The other ones we're going to skip, and we'll tell you why. Because actually, I always say personally, I don't want this just to be, here's the teams to bet on. I actually want to tell you sometimes, avoid that one. I think it's a trap. I don't think it'd be good value for your money to bet on this match here. Maybe it's too close and the odds don't justify it. So what I'll do quickly to show people is I'm not going to place the bets again. I'll just show you on my screen here. You can see I already did a bet. I did 3 on the show before. At the bottom, I did this one here where I picked, actually Ted, who was our guest on Snake and Banter. Hopefully they'll link that. He picked OG as an underdog to beat Apex. Not a bad one. Then I picked ENCE as an underdog to beat Spirit, but that's only because the odds are mental. They have 3.34 odds, by the way, it's a BO1. Maui picked Heroic as the favourite to win against Preezy. Pretty good one there. We'll get to these in a second and talk about them. And then on a different show, I just did the under on Astralis versus Nexus, because I thought the under's like 21.5. Like, I actually think there's a world Astralis can just turn up and blow them out the server. So you also don't have to just do the win and the bet. So what we'll do now is we'll just talk about all the matches. So let's start out with, I've got it first on my screen here, Spirit against ENCE, right? What do you actually think on this one? I'm just taking it for the underdog odds, Maui, but like, What do you think? Is it plausible ENCE can pull off an upset? What do you think? Would you say stay away from it? We can have different takes, by the way. So what's your take on this one?
Could they possibly win? Yes, and that's basically why this is a fun underdog one. Do I think that ENCE is going to win? Absolutely not.
Sure.
But I do think that. Actually, I wouldn't even use the word absolutely. That's actually too harsh. I would actually just say most likely not, which is why, again, like Spirit right now are the best team when it comes to CS2. ENCE are a team that were overperforming when it came to Katowice. If ENCE is able to ride any of that momentum, and also I want to bring up the fact that ENCE has a team that seems very capable of anti-stratting.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
I would want to bring that.
Because you've got a lot of material specifically with Spirit, if you think about it, right? Yeah, we've all just seen a million maps. I think they played like 15 maps or something at Katowice. It's pretty wild.
The player quality is so obviously higher on Spirit that even with good anti-stratting, I wouldn't necessarily think ENCE can overcome that. But again, it's the minds that are behind ENCE right now are strong enough and smart enough, like Glaive and Cuban, that I would imagine they can muster up some sort of game plan. Because I kind of feel like they probably narrowed this veto, because it's a BO1 also, that means they can already narrow down the veto to 4 maps. And so, and probably of those 4, they know that Spirit's going to ban 1 or 2. That's probably making a game plan for 2, at most 3 maps. And so you're in a very strong position right now if you're ENCE. So I don't really think that there's any real reason to think that this is impossible. But I just think that everybody from both of these teams is going to regress in some ways, except for a few key people. I think Shiro was as good as he was at Katowice. I think Magix and Chopper, I think Chopper is going to regress. I think Donk's going to regress. But I also think Hades is going to probably regress from ENCE. I think Glaive is going to regress just a little bit. Yep. But then I actually think that a couple of the guys on ENCE might be able to actually do a little bit better, because I remember that I'm pretty sure it was Kylar who was sort of an onliner
I think
every
he
time
was,
Nine had
yes.
to play.
Yes.
So he seems to be playing a little bit better at Katowice, and I think he's just getting more comfortable at LAN situations. So there's a chance that he starts trending upwards a little bit more. And yeah, I think in a weird way, this is a game where I'll almost put it like this. If this were a BO3, I would say stay away from this one for ENCE. But as a BO1 with all the anti-stratting and just all these narratives I can conjure up in my head, it's possible.
Yes, and I'll also just throw in there kind of what I pointed out when the hot take point made. If I'm going to make the hot take that this is the worst qualification method ever, I obviously mean for the best teams. That plays really well if you want BO1 upsets. These are BO1s with MR12, with the bullshit CS2 peakers advantage, with weird map pool, and then throw in the fucked up economy. So yeah, basically all you need is this, guys. Like, if basically there's a world where like Spirit wins a CT pistol, loses the force back, and then they just did a nightmare CT off. So you have 6-7 rounds, and then, you know, you win your pistol. Like, you can see, it's a lot easier, I actually think, now than people realise to win these BO1s. So we go to another one. So we had, as I said, Ted did the one where it was OG is the underdog against Apex. Again, he's doing it off odds because to me, this is more of a, you know, it's more of a coin flip type pick'em game. So what he's done is the odds aren't coin flip and pick'em. The odds are massively in favour of Apex. So what he's basically done is, again, there's a world where OG can turn up with whatever lineup they have and just sort of fuck around and win a game possibly. How would you judge this particular game? What are your thoughts on both teams?
Apex are one of the highest variance teams that I've watched at Katowice because they play a style of T-side where, practically speaking, all 5 players just do whatever they want on the map at any given time. Like, I was watching Stiko walk out by himself on multiple maps. I was watching...
Was it explained, by the way? Because obviously the main problem I had with this team, I even did that interview with Nork, is everyone knew that Kixon was going to get bought by a team. Might not even have been heroic if people don't know. He was going to be bought by a big name team. So... The point is, people behind the scenes have hyped that guy. I can't lie, his team did well at Katowice. They've hyped him as like he's a potential like super genius IGL. Like, they're basically making him sound like he's the next Shuhei, like he's also a guy. So on this team, obviously the problem they have is like, who even is the IGL now? Do you know? Is it the Kakanito guy? Who is it? It's who? Oh, it's the Sense guy who's also another new player. Did they actually look? Do you think that means that they're sort of just pogging it a bit? Do you think they aren't really trying to use a lot of structure? What's your sense? Oh, obviously, pun unintended.
Yeah, he was from the Apex Academy team.
Ah, right.
Yeah, and I think he's kind of being like bred to be an in-game leader, but he's no, their style is really random. Like, legitimately, it's just whoever feels like they see an opportunity or a window, they'll just take that. And so sometimes I've seen some Apex T sides that are just spurred by a completely random individual like Stiko, for example, just popping off towards his side of the map and just feeling out the default really strongly over there. But then I've also seen them just play terrible CS. And like, for example, they played, well, I'll just say like at Katowice itself, I think they had one of the worst trading percentages of any team. I'll actually verify that. They had literally the worst trading of any team. Wow. They had literally 15% trading. And for example, Spirit, who won it all, had 25%, if I'm rounding. So that's just terrible. Like, I mean, they just play a style that's so individually driven that if the individuals aren't up to snuff against the team they're playing, they don't really have a backup option. This team doesn't really have set piece plays. Like, I remember when they played against Spirit and they got 13-0'd on Ancient, they played this 5 people go wherever you feel like every single round, and the firepower difference was just so apparent that they were just losing everywhere they went, except for on round 11 and round 12, they actually decided of the half, so like the last 2 rounds, they did a 5-man B exec, just got demolished, did a 5-man A exec, got demolished, lost the half 0-12, and that's just not completely unusual for this team. They're just totally random. So that's why I think for Ted on his bet here to pick OG, it's not even a bet. I would almost, anytime Apex is the favorite, I would probably just bet the underdog.
They're not reliable to you, right?
Yeah, just like they have better player quality. The overall player quality is higher on Apex than OG, but on any given day, OG might have the best player in the server. I think Heavy God's a better player than everybody on Apex right now, so he could win his side of the map. And then unless Apex start making some more concerted efforts as a team, which I don't even think they're truly capable of, then they're just going to lose out.
Yeah, the other thing is, aside from the price, which I actually think Ted's correctly identified is a good price for an underdog, like, I think there's a very plausible world where OG does win this game. I think it's a pretty close matchup. I agree with you on that last point as well. The other thing that makes me go against Apex, and especially say if you're not going to bet OG, avoid the Apex side of the bet, is they don't have like a stud superstar player. Like, look, Nork and Jacob are good players. They're not like some guy who's just going to dominate the map and drop 35 kills. It's not going to happen. So as a result, I'm not as scared if I'm OG. Like, this is a very beatable opponent. I feel like you're even quite frankly, even though on LAN, Apex will place higher, if you actually look at like sort of the skill bracket, they're in sort of the same sort of ranking of teams for me. They're not that, like, obviously I did vibe with Apex when they had Kixon. Now they don't. They're a bit whatever, you know. Like, I feel sorry actually for some of the players that stayed, like the aforementioned. Right, if we then do, you picked on Snake and Banter, you did Heroic versus Preezy, and you did the Heroic side of it. Obviously, Heroic, I actually tried to point this out, I almost feel like the underdog runs of ENCE and Falcons and these teams made people not notice. Dude, Heroic was actually doing pretty well at Katowice too. Like, they've in general actually been kind of a shock. Like, I thought this lineup, dude, really was the reject. And it was like, mate, you've actually fucking wasted your money buying the Kixon guy. Like, what's he going to do? I have to say, they've been way better than I thought they were going to be. Like, they're actually a solid enough team. Like, what do you think of this match? Like, on Preezy side, they're an obvious underdog. What do you think of Heroic and Preezy?
Preezy are one of those online grinder teams, but the problem that they have is that they don't actually have a set opper. They've been using TMB, who's also their in-game leader, to op sometimes and in-game lead. Like, in a whole BO5 that went all 5 maps, I think he had 8 total op kills, and that's like your opper.
BO5, holy moly.
Yeah. So they I think they played that against Ecstatic. Yeah, they played that against Ecstatic, and their primary opper got 8 op kills in the whole BO5. So I'm like, if they have no op presence like that, then I look at Heroic's individual talent, because the problem for me with Heroic, if I want to get into them, is that I felt like cohesion was something that they were really lacking at the Blast Spring groups. It just felt like sometimes, and in the open and closed qualifiers for the RMR itself, because I would see things like Testis would be a little bit too fast, Shush might be a little bit too slow, Nerds just felt like he was very lost in a few situations. But over time, I've seen this team improve in terms of cohesion, and yet the player quality still remains very strong for them. So if I'm playing against a team that has no opper, I mean, I already think the Heroic Riflers are much stronger than Preezy's Riflers. So if it's going to be just a rifle v rifle duel, well, Heroic has the advantage. Oh, and guess what? They also have a set opper on Heroic who should be able to take down the players from Preezy, because they have no one that's going to be able to truly contest him. So I have just a handful of win conditions here for Heroic, and I feel like what you're kind of getting here is a meeting in the middle of a team that's been doing quite well online in Preezy, and you have a team that's been doing kind of like improving at LAN, but at tier 1 lands in Heroic. And so I feel pretty confident here with Heroic. And when I see the 1.54 for a team that I'm quite confident in, like I imagine they're going to win this a good amount of times. Like, I would imagine they win this, say, 8 out of 10 times over Preezy. Even though Preezy, like, I'm not really even buying into the angle, because I think some people might see this and they're like, oh, but it's a domestic matchup, like anything can happen. Well, I don't really see Heroic as a domestic Danish team anymore. Yeah. So this isn't really like a battle of familiarity, despite the fact that you look at some of Preezy's players, Dupree, Refresh, Roy. Sure, we've kind of been fairly we've seen these guys all do well, but they're generally speaking the second or third or even fourth fiddle on teams. Like, it's not like, again, no one's popping off the page here for Preezy that's just going to be like, oh, he's going to have a pop-off performance, and they're just going to run away with it.
Also, the joke is, I must apologise to Heroic. It was obviously Preezy who were the rejects all along. Like, this is the ultimate reject team. Like, it's like everyone who's booted off a team the last 3 months, like, let's just get together, Suicide Squad style. So, no, the joke is, the reason you also nailed it there is because I noticed the one player you didn't mention on Heroic is the one I also am pretty out on, which is Nikados. But it's like, spoiler, he actually will be the best AWPer in this matchup. So, if I can ever say that, I think we've got to take Heroic, right? I think it's a pretty safe one to take, mate, even though the odds aren't super high. Like, I think 1.5, pretty confident they'll win this. Yeah. Right, okay. So on the screen here, obviously, a bet that we haven't done yet is we're going to do Monty against Ecstatic, because interestingly, and I'm actually shocked about this, like, I know that in online play, and it may be like small lands, a lot of people actually do think Ecstatic have something to them, like they can be a quality team. But dude, am I missing something? The Monty team have been like the sleeper of the last 5 to 6 months. Like, how on earth are the odds so close? Like, the odds are telling us, guys, this is a coin flip. Whereas to me, I look at this and I just think, how the fuck am I going to get, because we're going to bet on Monty at 1.837 in a BO1 against Ecstatic? Like, give me your thoughts on this. It seems like a steal.
So I think what happened with this game is that, because the one thing that made this more even than it should be is because SDY isn't playing in the game.
Oh, so, right, that'll be why then, right? I see.
Yes, okay. Yeah, but it's they're playing with a guy that was on like the Monty Academy team instead. But the thing is that Wara was already so you think you losing SDY, who might be, it's like, oh, it's a big hit, they're losing the in-game leader. Wara was the in-game leader of this team for
it's a while now. Months. Yes, I believe even back at the fucking major, someone said something like that SDY had given up being IGL or something. I think it was a long time ago.
They were swapping in and out
Oh,
of the
right.
role.
Okay.
And I think SDY came back into the role, but then
Right.
Woro came back in again. Like it's been a back and forth affair between the two of them for
Okay.
who's the in-game leader. Woro is listed as the in-game leader right now when I look at Liquipedia, and that they seem to be pretty up to date on these things. But yeah, they're obviously they're playing with a stand-in, but this guy that's a stand-in for them has also just been flat out farming. Like he hasn't played too much stuff, admittedly, but in I think he played some. He played like against like a Maus NXT team and some other teams, and he's just farming kind of the tier 2 teams in general that I kind of look to be on the same level as Ecstatic in general. So I'm not really. I don't think he's going to be as good as SDY. Obviously, he's not going to be able to fit the system just as well or anything like that. But I feel like this is a time when you're going to be like, look at the core 4 of Monty, how strong they are versus what Ecstatic are. And you're getting almost like a discount on betting it on a team that should be a pretty strong favorite regardless. And it's a 1-for-1 rifler player. Like, it's not like like you're having to replace the op or the in-game leader. You're just replacing a rifler. And it's like SDY was quite good for Monty, but he's still not the best player or anything like that. You're not getting a standout rifler that's just dominating the scene or anything like that. So I just think that this is a really kind of a cheeky one because they're just making it more even because of a stand-in situation that I frankly am not too worried about.
Yeah, I've been telling people, obviously this isn't the proper Monty lineup, but to me, the two teams that have impressed me as sort of sleepers and dark horse are Gamer Legion and Monty. Like, these guys, even with different lineups, have just kept rolling, guys. Like, if you see them in tournaments, the problem is if you only watch the playoffs of big tournaments, you might think, well, they're done. Like, they're almost right there every time, mate. Like, they're a team where, like, right now, I would say both those teams just play spoiler for bigger teams. Like, they're always going to take down one bigger team. Now, look, they might fuck it up and not get it over the line themselves, but those results are legit. And that, quite frankly, just like Game Legion, they've had a lot of those results, Maui. It's not just like the odd one. They've had almost every LAN. It feels like they get a scalp of someone, you know. So even though they haven't got the play, I think we do this one. I think this is an easy one. We're going to go and we're going to put the bet onto... Wait there one sec. Wait there one sec for it to come. It'll appear in a second. I wish I knew how to make that faster, but I don't, sadly. So
such a weird glitch.
There you go. It's back there. Right, so what we'll do is obviously we'll go to this one, Monty Ecstatic. We'll go down. We're just going to take the Monty side, 1.837. I'm going to do 1,000, which is how much they told me to do for Esports Bet. So there you go. 1,000. We've got amazing odds, 1.837. I actually love that. Obviously, yes, there is a world where a BO1 can be won by the other team, but I'm not that worried. Right, if we go down some of the other matchups, these are just, look, we're not picking them to bet on, but I want to get your thoughts on that. Give me some takes on the teams, and then just give me your thoughts on the odds. Like, is it something priced out? Would you avoid it? Maybe if you have it, you don't have to stretch yourself for this one, but if you have some weird other angle, like maybe that's an over-under, let me know. So we'll start with the one at the top. Team Vitality is a massive favourite. They're 1.207 against Gamer Legion, who are 4.139. Those are very, very high odds. Is there even a universe Gamer Legion wins this? What's your thoughts on this matchup?
They can win this. Yeah, they can win this. I actually, now that I see these odds, I'm almost...
I wonder if the odds went up, because that almost feels like a good underdog bet, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm almost looking at this one between Spirit and ENCE, and I think Gamer Legion is more likely to upset Vitality than ENCE is likely to upset Spirit.
Well, let's do it. Should we do the Gamer Legion underdog bet, do you think?
Yeah, they're nasty at Overpass. If they somehow get Overpass, Gamer Legion can beat anybody in the world on Overpass right now.
In that case, I think what we'll do is, for this one, I mean, in theory, the problem with this is I'm going to have to figure out what my new betting schedule is, but I'll do that then. I'll do the underdog. We'll say we'll ride with Gamer Legion on this one. So for this one, I'll change the amounts later, but I'll do 1,000 for that too. We'll just say 1,000 for this one. I'll make the bigger bets 2,000 or something in the future, but there we go. We'll say 1,000. I agree with you. Actually, I wonder if those odds have changed recently, because I feel like if I saw that before, I would have gone with that as my immediate underdog, but I didn't see that before, I don't think.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either. I'm wondering why.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't think anybody's sick. I don't know why. Yeah, I've seen Gamer Legion play some really convincing halves of Counter-Strike. So,
no, if people don't know, it's not just because I interviewed him. I actually, considering I'm obviously a bit of a critic of this guy's attitude-wise, I have to say Snacks' addition as the adjunct, he actually looks pretty good in that role. It seems like he's sort of grown into it or something.
Yeah, I'll actually give a more well-rounded. This is like a desk take I would do, basically. So for this matchup, I think that the thing is with Vitality were in a position where they looked very strong for a brief window of CS2's limited history thus far, because they were practically just doing a 1-for-1 swap for Mezzi for Magisk. That was just kind of like Mezzi already was gonna play a lot. I mean, he already played a lot of the roles of Magisk. It was just a slight downgrade of a team that was already pretty strong. And so in theory, they kind of benefited because in that window of time, so many other teams were making much more drastic moves, like two players
Yes.
Player swap. Even FaZe themselves, which shouldn't have been that hard of a swap, did the Frozen for Twist, and so it was kind of a little bit hard to judge who was coming out better for it. It just seemed like Vitality had a better 4-man core than FaZe's 4-man core at that moment. And so to me, I think Vitality, there's only really one place I think Vitality can trend, and it's unfortunately downwards. And so with Gamer Legion, they're a team that had to do a lot of stuff. They changed. I mean, the big one was obviously they changed out their in-game leader. They picked up Volt instead of Ema, and I think now those changes are starting. Volt's a little bit weaker, obviously, than what Ema did for them before, but Snax is a better in-game leader than Neelan. Like, when they had Neelan, this team was floundering, and I think people started to really underrate how good this Gamer Legion core was, just because Neelan...
when they had Neelan, people thought it was just showy, didn't they? Whereas you can see some of these players are legit. Yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A-cores looked a lot better at times. I think people have really started to take note of Isaac just being a nice, solid piece of the roster. It's just that their ratings overall as individuals are low because they're, generally speaking, playing some of the best teams in the world regularly. They look at their recent match history. They played in their last 6 matches, FaZe, VP, Maus, Heroic, Monty, M80. The only easy team there I'd see is M80, but they're playing all these really hard teams, and so their ratings look really bad and their win rates look really bad, but they're not playing bad Counter-Strike.
Yes. Okay, so then we have this one, which is Mouse Spots is a big favorite, 1.279 against Guild Eagles, 3.463. Right, here's the problem, Maui, is I'm actually trapped in this particular matchup because you know one thing I actually despise is I hate narratives that like don't really have, they're essentially sophistry. So you know the problem with Guild Eagles is, which obviously used to be Bad News Eagles, guys, is people are going to say, Maui, but they always qualify for majors. But like, you get this because you know the concept of logic and first principles. That's not a point. That's actually almost a non sequitur, because what you're saying essentially is, if I won the lottery once, I can go around going, I always win the lottery. It's like, well, yeah, until you went the next time and you don't win. Like, and then when you don't win, it had nothing to do, and there's no momentum from winning last time that did or didn't make me win this time. So here's the question I have for you. It's a hard question for an analyst. Since we're not going to go with, well, Guild Eagle just qualifies something, profit and goes to majors, is there a reason to believe they actually can be a force in this RMR? Can they win this matchup? What do you think?
I mean, the people that I know that watch more Tier 2 CS than me, like Yumi and King T, told me Guild Eagles have been playing some of the worst Counter-Strike.
Oh, really? Right.
Seen in online CS for a while. Like,
that's a bummer.
Like, they already had a very bad style, but they already, like, a random style.
No, I know what you mean.
But it's not even really working now, and I think that probably has to do with CS2's mechanics feeling just a little bit different. Right. And some of the players might not be up to snuff, like some of the people that have just been grinding super hard in that space too. I wouldn't touch Guild Eagles with a 10-foot pole right now.
Because that's one where I actually feel like that's a trap. Because you're going to look at the odds on that and go, hey, same thing we said. It's a BO1. We're saying it's a BO1 where we know the underdog has some game, guys. Like, I'm with you. The problem with the Guild Eagle ones is what I've always said, mate. The reason why I never hyped them when they went to the majors is, what are they doing between the majors? They're not fucking going home and sit with a parasol. They're trying like everyone else to get in the tournaments and do so. They're just basically, the joke is they really are. Like, they're I'm going to say the most hurtful thing ever about Guild Eagles. They are the modern day Vega squadron. Your job is just to fuck up one person's tournament and then never make it to the playoffs yourself. So, sorry, in this case, apparently, the clock struck 12 and the carriage just turned back into a pumpkin. It's over. You're not even playing well online. It ain't happening. We're taking Mouse all day long, baby. So, okay, we're not, actually, spoiler, we're not. We're just saying don't bet on that one, but Mouse will win.
yeah.
It's okay.
They're still random. They still just play a completely random style.
Right, what about this? Right, look. You'd really have to be the greatest salesman ever to sell me on Pera Esports here. Because, spoiler, Cloud9 has a 1.036. If you don't know, that's almost like they're telling you you can't get anything if you bet on them. Meanwhile, Pera is at 9.484 from Big One. Like, that implies, Maui, that like they shouldn't even be able to like do anything in the server. Like, that's pretty bonkers odds. So come on, do you know anything about this? I don't fuck all about them, mate.
Well, the only things I can say about Para are pretty damning. Like, they're kind of known to be a team that has had very suspicious wins and losses in Tier 2 competition.
Right.
That's kind of all I can really say about them. I don't even know how they made it here.
Oh, shit. When you say that, I know exactly what you mean, because I've just flashed some of the players. Okay, I know what you mean. Okay, yes. It's a little bit suspect. Okay.
Yeah.
And spoiler, this is not an online game where that could happen. It's a LAN and it's the major qualifier.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we're skipping that one, unsurprisingly.
I would just say this about Cloud9 in general is just right now, like, if they have no time to prep and they have to play against a team that you might think like even give me a team like Apex or whatever, Cloud9 can lose a BO1 to Apex. Like, if that becomes a second round matchup or something, they could lose to a few of these teams that are probably that should be underdogs on them. That's where I'm at with Cloud9 right now. I'm not gonna I predicted they would lose to Monty in IM Katowice in a BO3, and they did. Like, they're in pretty bad form, and they're like a borderline even qualify team for me, actually, at this event.
Right, being as I already did the under on Astralis Nexus, because my logic there is it's a BO1. If it's the right map, Astralis has firepower. They could just win that 13-4 or something, couldn't they? I think that's a pretty good one. What I'll ask you is this. You just did it there, but the final thing I'll ask you is this, Maui. Just looking to the future, obviously on this episode, we ourselves don't know the next matchups. I would just say this. Who are some teams where maybe the name isn't, obviously people are going to take Team Spirit and Vitality. Those ones go without saying, mate.
Yeah.
Who are the other ones that you're actually feeling throughout the qualifier, you expect these people to get through, or you think if they get the right sort of teams, they'll get through? Who should people be looking to so that later on, if they get good odds or it's an underdog, who would you be putting in that? Who are your dark horses for this?
So I'm gonna go kind of if I call it a dark horse, I'm just gonna call it based off of HLTV ranking.
Yeah, do it.
And for example, I don't think we see them necessarily as a dark horse, but Astralis is ranked in the bottom half of these teams right now. They definitely, I think, should be making it through. Other teams that are kind of in that underdog territory that could be making it through, Gamer Legion also, if people haven't been paying attention at the beginning of this year. And I don't really, other than that, I feel I'll just say my 8 teams outright.
Yeah, go on.
The obvious ones are Vitality, Spirit, Maus. I would take Monty also, so that's 4. I would take Heroic, that's 5. And I would take Astralis, that's 6. And then you have slots for 2 more. And see, I'm actually lower on ENCE than most people, personally. I think there is definitely a world where they pull off a weird upset here and there, especially when they have a lot of time to prep. But in a day-to-day setting for ENCE, I'm just not really too convinced of them. I think the same thing about Apex, and I think Cloud9 also are teams that I'd be very, very worried about. I have more faith in Heroic making it through than, say, Apex or ENCE. Or definitely Apex. And then with the lower half of teams, Gamer Legion and Astralis are the ones that clearly pop off the page for me. I can't really sell myself on any of the other real underdogs like Preci, OG, Guild Eagles, Ecstatic, Para, Nexus. I can't. It's really hard for me to wrap my head around those. I like OG a lot, but I think OG is the one big thing OG is going to do this year is that they're going to sell Heavy God to a top 10 team in the world.
Yeah, I think I would have a fairly similar one. I think in this case, I might opt for ENCE over, say, an Apex or something like that. Maybe it's my last team, just if they can get through. It's also a scenario where I actually do think, like you said earlier, I think the underrated part about ENCE is people are just looking at the players in the server and they're thinking things like, these 9 guys should be like they were on 9. It's bro, they didn't have Glaive and Cuban then. That's a pretty significant change to your style of play, what you think about your game, how they're going to call for you on LAN. So I actually think, by the way, the thing on the ENCE side to me is the difference is I actually think in an RMR I probably can rely on Hades to pop off a little bit. There's a little bit less of a pressure environment, I don't think it's everything, the weight of the world on his shoulder. The problem is if they make the major, I don't think they do anything. So yeah, I've got a pretty similar one. Right, to end with, I'll just mention one more promotion. So if you go on that promotions tab on the left, the other one to mention is this one, the 777 bonus. Make sure you go here to apply it. You pick your crypto, you agree and apply. The way this one works is you sign up on Esports Bet, you pick the currency, you agree. The first 100% deposit bonus is capped at 300 USDT or equivalent. Minimum deposit is 10 USDT. The bonus is applicable for all cryptocurrencies. And crucially for this one, again, everyone can do it, but you can only do it once. So this is a key one where it's not just a first time one. It's one where you can do it that as well. So it's basically on this one. This one runs for 300 days, by the way. You don't have to do this now. You can do it any time this year. This is just a better deposit bonus, basically. You just get more out of it. So there we go. Me and Maui will be back in future episodes of Competitive Edge and, of course, on all the podcasts on S3E3 Network. Shout out to Esports Bet, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix. See everyone at the RMR.